I am writing this because someone must. I am the last historian of the Velen Dominion, and this is my confession. This is the story of how we fell. Not to a great empire, not to an ancient power. We fell to humans, and it was our own fault. It began in the year they called 2157. Our great fleet hung in the darkness above their little blue world. Earth, they called it. Such a small name for such a small planet. We had conquered 37 species before them. We had crushed empires that spanned 1,000 stars. We looked at Earth and saw nothing but easy prey. Fleet Admiral Corrin stood on the bridge of our command ship, the Eternal Silence. He was old, even by our standards. He had led the conquest of 6 worlds. He had never known defeat. He looked at the planet below and laughed. They still fight each other, he said. They have not even united their own world. This will take days, not weeks. We had watched them for some time. Their ships were slow and clumsy. Their weapons were primitive. They had only just learned to leave their own planet. By our measure, they were children playing with toys. So we sent the message. The same message we had sent to 37 species before. Surrender or die. Simple, clean, final. Every species before them had done the same thing. They begged. They cried. They offered tribute. They fell to their knees and accepted their chains. The humans did something different. They sent a diplomat. His name was Tay. He came alone in a small shuttle that looked like it might fall apart at any moment. He wore simple clothes. He carried no weapons. He smiled when he stepped onto our ship, as if he were visiting friends. Corrin found this amusing. He allowed the human to speak. Tay walked through our ship like he belonged there. He looked at our soldiers, our weapons, our technology. He asked questions. So many questions. What would happen to human children under Velen rule? What would happen to their art? Their music? Their stories? Would they be allowed to keep their languages? Their customs? Their songs? Our officers laughed at him. What did such things matter? They would be slaves. Slaves did not need songs. But Tay kept asking. He asked about patrol schedules. He asked about chain of command. He asked about supply lines. He asked these questions so casually, mixed with his foolish talk of art and children, that no one noticed what he was really doing. He was learning. I noticed. I was young then, just a junior recorder on the command ship. I watched this small human with his easy smile, and something about him made me cold. He was not afraid. He should have been afraid. Every species was afraid when they saw our fleet. But Tay looked at our warships like he was counting them, like he was measuring them, like he was planning something. I said nothing. Who would listen to a junior recorder? Corrin grew bored with the humans' questions. He gave humanity 72 hours to surrender. Then he sent Tay back to Earth. I watched the little shuttle fly away. I watched it grow smaller and smaller until it disappeared. And I felt something I had never felt before. Doubt. 72 hours passed. No surrender came. Corrin smiled. He had hoped for this. Conquest was more glorious than surrender. He gave the order to attack. Our first wave descended on their largest cities. 10,000 soldiers. The finest warriors in the Dominion. They expected panic. They expected screaming. They expected humans to run and hide and beg. Instead, every screen on every ship flickered at the same moment. Every communication channel was suddenly filled with the same broadcast. A human woman appeared. She was not young. Her hair was gray, her face was lined, but her eyes were hard as stone. She spoke in a calm, cold voice that carried no fear at all. "We received your message," she said. "We have decided not to surrender. We have been waiting for visitors from the stars for a very long time. We always knew this day would come. We have been preparing." She paused, and then she smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of something that had been hiding its teeth. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "We hope you enjoy your stay, however long it lasts." The transmission ended. Corin laughed. What could humans do against the might of the Dominion? They had no fleet. They had no weapons that could scratch our armor. They were insects boasting to giants. But I did not laugh. I remembered Tay and his questions. I remembered his smile. And I understood something that Corin, in all his centuries of conquest, had never learned. The humans were not afraid because they had already accepted what was coming. They were not hoping to survive. They were hoping to make us pay for every step we took on their world. They had nothing to lose. And a species with nothing to lose is the most dangerous thing in the universe. This was our first mistake. We thought that because humans were young, they were weak. We thought that because they were small, they were harmless. We thought that because they fought among themselves, they could not stand against us. We were wrong. We were so very wrong. And by the time we understood the truth, it was already too late. The invasion of Earth had begun. And so had our end. Asterisk. The first day of the invasion should have been the last. Our soldiers landed in their great cities: Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, Beijing. 10,000 warriors in each city. Warriors who had crushed armies and broken empires. Warriors who had never known fear. They learned fear on Earth. I will tell you about Seoul, because that is where the legend of human resistance was born. That is where we first understood what we were truly fighting. A sergeant named Day commanded a small group of human soldiers. Only 50 of them. They were not special forces. They were not elite warriors. They were ordinary people who had been given guns and told to fight. Farmers, teachers, students, office workers. They had trained for only a few weeks. They faced a battalion of 300 Velen soldiers. Our soldiers stood 8 feet tall. Their armor could stop any human bullet. Their weapons could cut through steel like paper. By every measure, Day and his 50 soldiers should have died in the first minute. They did not die. Instead, they vanished. One moment they were there. The next, they were gone. Our soldiers searched the streets, the buildings, the parks. Nothing. It was like the humans had turned into ghosts. Then the attacks began. A Velen soldier would walk down a street, and a shot would come from a window. Then another. Then silence. Our soldiers would storm the building and find nothing. No humans, no weapons. Just empty rooms and open windows thought they came from below. The humans had tunnels under their cities. Subway systems, they called them. Our soldiers did not know about these. No one had thought to look. The humans moved through the darkness like fish through water. They would appear behind our lines, strike fast and hard, and then disappear again. They led his 50 soldiers for 30 days. They slept in shifts, 2 hours at a time. They ate whatever they could find. They never stopped moving. And every day, they killed more of us. By the end of the first month, they had lost 20 soldiers. But he had killed over 200 of ours. And he was not special. All across Earth, small groups of humans were doing the same thing. They did not fight like soldiers. They fought like something wild, something that could not be tamed or broken. They smiled when they killed us. That is what our soldiers reported, again and again. The humans smiled, but the ground war was only half the story. In orbit, we still controlled the skies. Our ships were faster and stronger. No human vessel could match us. This should have meant victory. It did not. Deep beneath the city of Bizen, in a bunker that had been built to survive nuclear war, a woman named Yuna sat in front of a wall of screens. Before the invasion, She had been a schoolteacher. She taught mathematics to children. She had never held a weapon in her life, but Yuna understood patterns. She understood numbers. And she understood patience. She watched our fleet. She counted our ships. She measured our patrol routes and timed our movements. She did this for weeks, barely sleeping, barely eating. And slowly, she began to see what no one else could see. She saw the gaps. Our fleet was large, but it was not infinite. We could not be everywhere at once. There were moments, brief windows, when certain areas were unguarded. Yuna found these moments. She mapped them. And then she told the human ships exactly when and where to strike. The humans had old ships, slow ships, ships that our weapons could destroy in seconds. But they did not need to be fast. They only needed to be in the right place at the right time. Supply ships started disappearing, not warships, not command vessels. Just the small, slow ships that carried food and fuel and ammunition. One here, one there. Never enough to seem like a real threat. The war runs on supplies. Soldiers cannot fight without food. Ships cannot fly without fuel. Weapons cannot fire without ammunition. Yuna understood this. She did not try to win the war in space. She tried to starve it. Admiral Corrin called for reinforcements. I remember the day the report came to the command ship. Corrin read it in silence. His face, which had always been so proud, so certain, turned gray. Human resistance was not weakening. It was growing. Every day, more humans joined the fight. Every day, they learned more about how we fought. They studied our tactics. They copied our strategies. They improved on them. And somewhere on that burning planet, hidden from our sensors and our spies, the humans were building something. We did not know what. We did not know where. But the reports all said the same thing. Resources were moving. Materials were disappearing. Factories that should have been destroyed were somehow still running. The humans were planning something. Corrin ordered more troops, more ships, more weapons. He thought that strength could solve any problem. He thought that if he hit the humans hard enough, they would break. But humans do not break. That is the lesson we learned in those first terrible months. You can hurt them. You can kill them. You can burn their cities and poison their land. And they will keep fighting. They will fight with their last breath. They will fight with their bare hands. They will fight until there is nothing left of them but bones and anger. And even then, the ones who remain will remember. And they will make you pay 30 days into the invasion. Corrin stood on the bridge of the eternal silence and stared at Earth. The planet was burning in a dozen places. Millions of humans were dead. By every measure, we were winning. But Corrin did not look like a man who was winning. He looked like a man who had stepped on what he thought was a small animal and discovered too late that it was a trap. The war had just begun. And already we were losing. By the second month, we controlled every major city on Earth. Our flag flew over their capitals. Our soldiers walked their streets. We had killed millions and captured millions more. We thought we had won. We had not even begun to understand what we were fighting. The humans retreated underground, not just into bunkers and basements. They retreated into the spaces between things, into sewers and subway tunnels and abandoned mines, into places our sensors could not see and our soldiers could not reach. They built a world beneath the world, and they continued to fight from there. I learned later about a man named Wu. Before the war, he had been an engineer. He built machines for factories. Simple work. Honest work. Nothing that would make him famous. The war made him into something else. Wu lived in a basement with 30 other survivors. They had almost nothing. Some broken electronics, some tools, some wire and metal scraps. Any sensible person would have used these things to survive. To wait. Wu used them to fight. He built a device that could scramble our communication signals. It was ugly. It was held together with tape and hope. But it worked. When Velen soldiers tried to call for backup, they heard only static. When our commanders tried to give orders, no one received them. One man with some wire and broken electronics blinded our entire communication network in 3 provinces. That was the thing about humans. They did not need much. They could build weapons from garbage. They could make medicine from weeds. They could turn anything into a tool for survival. There was a woman named Hannah who proved this better than anyone. She was a medic, a healer. She had spent her life saving people. Now she saved her people in a different way. We used bioweapons against the humans. Diseases designed to kill quickly and spread faster. We had used these weapons on other species. They always worked. Within weeks, entire populations would be dead. The humans did not die. Hannah studied the diseases. She worked in a hidden laboratory with almost no equipment. She had no time and no resources. But she had something we did not expect. She had thousands of years of human medical knowledge. She had the collected wisdom of every doctor and scientist who had ever lived on Earth. And she had other humans helping her. Doctors in South America sent her their research through hidden networks. Scientists in Europe shared their discoveries. Survivors everywhere contributed what they knew. No one person could have stopped our bioweapons. But together, working as one mind spread across the planet, they found cures faster than we could create new diseases. This is what we never understood about humans. They were not individuals. They were a network. Every human was connected to every other human by invisible threads of knowledge and memory and shared purpose. When one human learned something, all humans learned it. When one human fell, another picked up their work. You could not defeat them by killing them. You only made the survivors angrier, and smarter, and more determined. In the mountains of the Korean peninsula, a man named Seok led the largest resistance cell in Asia. He did not look like a leader. He was short and quiet. He had a limp from a childhood injury. Before the war, he had been a farmer. He grew rice and vegetables. He lived a simple life. But Seok understood something that our generals never did. He understood that war was not about strength. It was about will. He gathered survivors from everywhere. Soldiers and civilians, old and young, rich and poor. He did not ask what they had been before. He only asked if they were willing to fight. And every one of them said yes. Seok built a network that stretched across the continent. Messages passed through hidden channels. Supplies moved through secret routes. Information flowed like water, finding every crack and gap in our defenses. And Seok waited. He did not attack blindly. He did not waste lives on hopeless battles. He watched and learned and planned. He was patient the way only a farmer can be patient. He understood that some things take time to grow. In the 6th month of the war, Seok decided the time had come. He broadcast a message to every resistance cell on Earth. The message was simple. It said, "They came to conquer us. Let us show them what we do to conquerors." That night, across every continent, the lights went out. It was not an accident. It was not a malfunction. The humans had been planning this for months. They had found every weakness in our power systems. They had placed their people in exactly the right positions. And when Seok gave the signal, they struck as one. Every Velen base on Earth lost power at the same moment. Our sensors went dark. Our weapons went silent. Our soldiers were blind and helpless. And then the humans came out of the shadows. They attacked from everywhere at once. From above and below. From inside and outside. They knew exactly where to strike because they had been watching us for months. They knew our patrol routes. They knew our weak points. They knew everything. By morning, half of our occupation zones were in human hands. Thousands of our soldiers were dead or captured. Equipment that had taken years to build was destroyed in hours. Corinne was recalled in disgrace. A new commander was sent to finish what he had started. His name was Veth, and he brought with him the most terrible weapon in our arsenal. But that is a story for another chapter. For now, know this. On that night, when the lights went out across Earth, something changed. The humans stopped being victims. They became predators. And we became prey. When the news reached our homeworld, the High Council refused to believe it. A primitive species pushing back the might of the Veline Dominion? Impossible. The reports must be wrong. The commanders must be lying. But the reports kept coming. And they were not lies. For the first time in 10,000 years, the High Council met in emergency session. I was not there, but I have read the records. The oldest members of the council, beings who had lived for centuries, sat in stunned silence as they learned what was happening on Earth. Corinne was stripped of his rank. His name was erased from our histories. He died in shame, forgotten by everyone except those of us who remembered the beginning. His replacement was a commander named Veth. Veth was not like Corin. Corin had been proud and foolish. Veth was cold and careful. He did not underestimate the humans. He simply did not care about them. Veth came to Earth with one order: end the war by any means necessary. And he brought with him the Silence Protocol. The Silence Protocol was our most terrible weapon. It was not a bomb or a disease. It was something worse. It was a machine that could tear a planet apart from the inside. It turned the core of a world into fire and ash. It had been used only twice in our history. Both times, nothing had survived. Veth planned to use it on Earth. I remember thinking that this was the end. The humans had fought well. They had surprised us. They had hurt us. But against the Silence Protocol, nothing could stand. Earth would become a dead rock, and the human story would end. I was wrong. When Veth's fleet arrived in Earth's orbit, they expected to find a broken world. Burning cities. Scattered survivors. A planet waiting to die. Instead, they found a fleet. The humans had been building in secret for months. Every factory that still worked. Every engineer who still lived. Every scrap of metal and wire and fuel. They had poured everything into this moment. The ships were ugly. They were not elegant like our vessels. They were rough and crude, held together by welding and willpower. They looked like they might fall apart at any moment, but there were hundreds of them. And they were rising from Earth like angry hornets from a broken nest. At the head of the fleet was a captured Velen warship. On its bridge stood Yuna, the schoolteacher who had become a commander. Beside her was a young man named Jin. Jin was only 17 years old. Before the war, he had dreamed of flying. He had built model aircraft in his room and imagined touching the stars. When the invasion came, he had found a crashed Velen fighter and taught himself to fly it. He learned from the wreckage. He learned from captured data files. He learned from his own mistakes. Now he was one of the best pilots humanity had ever produced. And he was ready to fight. The Battle of Earth's orbit lasted 11 hours. It should not have been a battle at all. Our ships were faster. Our weapons were stronger. Our pilots had centuries of experience. The humans had months, but the humans fought like nothing we had ever seen. They did not fly in neat formations. They did not follow predictable patterns. They swarmed like insects, attacking from every angle at once. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation, ramming their ships into ours when their weapons failed, and they had learned from us. Every tactic we used, they had already studied. Every move we made, they had already predicted. Wu, the engineer who had built the communication scrambler, had also built something else, a device that let humans see our command signals. They knew our orders before our own pilots did. Veth realized too late that he was not fighting amateurs. He was fighting an enemy that had been studying him for months. An enemy that knew everything about how he thought and how he fought. His fleet scattered. His command ship was boarded by human soldiers who had trained in zero gravity for exactly this moment. Veth died with a human knife in his heart. The silence protocol was captured. The humans took it apart piece by piece, learning every secret it held. And they found something else. Something that changed everything. Our faster-than-light engines. For all their cleverness, humans had never discovered how to travel faster than light. Their ships were slow, trapped in their own solar system. This was why we had not feared them. They could never reach us. They could never strike back. Now they had our technology. And Yuna, standing on the bridge of her captured warship, looked at a star map that showed the entire galaxy. For the first time in their history, humans could reach the stars. I have asked myself many times what she must have felt in that moment. Relief, perhaps. Pride. Maybe even fear at what was coming next. But I think the strongest feeling was resolve. The humans had not started this war. They had not wanted it. But they would finish it. Not because they hated us, but because they understood something we never had. A threat that is not ended will return. An enemy that is not defeated will come back stronger. The only way to protect their children and their world was to make sure no one ever threatened them again. Yuna gave the order. The human fleet began to move. The war was coming to us. And we were not ready. It took humanity 2 years to reach our homeworld. 2 years. We had spent 10,000 years building our empire. We had conquered 37 species across hundreds of star systems. We had believed ourselves to be the masters of the galaxy. It took the humans 2 years to tear it all down. They did not come alone. This is the part of our story that shamans me the most to tell. We had thought ourselves great conquerors. We had thought the species we ruled were grateful for our guidance. We had told ourselves that we brought order to chaos, civilization to savages. We were wrong. Every species we had conquered hated us. They had simply been too afraid to fight. They had been waiting, suffering in silence, praying for someone to save them. The humans became their answer. A communications officer named Bora had spent months learning the languages of our subject species. She broadcast messages to every world we controlled. She told them what the humans had done on Earth. She told them how a primitive species had stood against the Dominion and won. She told them that they did not have to be afraid anymore. The rebellions began within weeks. On 20 worlds at once, the chains broke. Slaves rose against their masters. Workers seized the factories. Soldiers turned on their commanders. The empire that had taken 10,000 years to build started to crumble in days. And through it all, the human fleet kept coming. They did not hurry. They did not need to. Every day that passed, more of our forces were pulled away to fight rebellions. Every day that passed, more of our subject species joined the human cause. By the time the fleet reached our homeworld, it was not a human fleet anymore. It was a fleet of the freed. A fleet of the broken. A fleet of everyone we had ever hurt. Day was there. The sergeant who had survived Seoul with 50 soldiers had become a general who commanded thousands. He led the ground forces that landed on our capital. His soldiers fought beside beings from a dozen different species, all of them united by one thing: hatred of us. Who was there? The engineer who had built weapons from garbage had become the architect of our destruction. He had designed the devices that disabled our planetary defense grid. He had found every weakness in our systems and exploited them all. Seok was there. The farmer who had led the resistance had become the voice of the Alliance. He negotiated with the leaders of every rebel species. He held them together when old hatreds threatened to tear them apart. He reminded them that revenge was less important than justice. And Tay was there, the diplomat, the observer, the man who had walked onto our command ship with a smile and walked away with the information that would destroy us. He had survived the entire war. He had been there at the beginning, and now he was here at the end. The final battle was short. We had nothing left to fight with. Our fleets were scattered. Our armies were broken. Our allies had abandoned us. When the human soldiers reached the High Council chamber, the oldest and proudest leaders of the Dominion were on their knees. They begged, just as 37 species had begged before us. They offered treasure. They offered territory. They offered anything and everything if only the humans would spare them. Tay listened to their begging. He let them finish. And then he spoke. "You came to our world," he said. "You burned our cities. You killed our children. You tried to take our songs and our stories and everything that made us who we are." The council members trembled. They expected death. Perhaps they even wanted it. Death would have been simple. Death would have been an ending. But Tay shook his head. "We are not going to kill you," he said. "Death is too easy. It lets you escape. It lets you forget." He stepped forward, and his voice became soft, almost gentle. "Instead, you are going to remember. Every one of you. Every child born to your species for the rest of time. You are going to learn what you did to Earth. You are going to learn what you did to every species you conquered. You are going to carry that knowledge forever." He turned away. "You wanted to make us into a lesson for the galaxy. Instead, you became one. The galaxy will remember what happens to those who come for our children, our art, and our songs." And so it was done. We were not destroyed. We were not enslaved. We were made into a warning. Every Velen child now learns the history of Earth. Every Velen school teaches the story of our fall. We are not allowed to forget. We are not allowed to move on. We are living monuments to our own mistakes. The humans rebuilt their world. They joined the community of species as equals, not conquerors. They kept the technology they had taken from us, but they did not use it to build an empire of their own. They were content to be free. I am old now. I was young when the war began, and I have lived to see its long aftermath. I have spent my life writing this history, making sure every detail is preserved. Sometimes young Velens ask me if I hate the humans. The question always makes me sad. No, I tell them, I do not hate the humans. I respect them. I fear them. But most of all, I understand them. They did not want to fight us. They did not want to conquer us. They only wanted to live their lives and sing their songs and raise their children in peace. We could not let them do that. And so they made us pay. This is how we finally fell to the humans. Not because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced. We fell because we underestimated them. We fell because we did not understand what they truly were. They were stubborn. They were creative. They were connected to each other in ways we could not see or comprehend. And they never, ever forgot. Let this be a lesson to any species that reads these words. Let this be a warning written in our shame. Do not go to Earth looking for easy prey. Do not threaten human children or try to silence human songs. Do not believe that because they are small, they are weak. Because they are not weak. They are human. And that is enough.